It's been nearly 8 years since Destiny 1 was released to the public, and in that time frame of 8 years, the game has changed quite a lot, seeing many highs and many lows. It's been a journey nonetheless, so today I wanted to take a look back at the beginning of the franchise, from the development to the alpha and the beta, and finally the launch of the vanilla game. This will be a multiple part series going over each of the different states of the game with their expansions. So for example, after this video would be a video going over the Dark Below and House of Wolves expansions, and so on until we reach current day Destiny. If you go on to enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for the future of the series. But let's just get right into the beginning of the Destiny story. Before Bungie Studios went on to develop Destiny, they of course were known for creating the FPS franchise Halo for Microsoft. Halo 1, 2, and 3 broke sales records in the entertainment industry and catapulted Bungie Studios into the spotlight, and were considered to be one of the best development teams in gaming. Shortly after the release of Halo 3, Bungie and Microsoft announced that Bungie would be splitting off from Microsoft and instead becoming an independent studio to work on other projects, but still agreed to develop 2 more games in the Halo franchise: Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach. While developing ODST, the early stages of development for Destiny would begin. Concepts were being created, world building and story material were being written, and very early alpha builds were in the works. And by the looks of things, based on an Easter egg found in ODST, they already had settled on a name for their next project: Destiny. During this time, Bungie Studios continued to grow in size, nearly doubling the number of employees, and would seek a partnership to support their new ambitious project. And after entering a 10-year publishing agreement with Activision, the hard work began on Destiny. It all began with the development of a new engine, the Tiger engine, which Bungie had been working on since 2008. Bungie would design the engine to allow for global illumination, real-time dynamic lighting, and natively render graphics at 1080p on both Xbox One and PlayStation 4. While visually and mechanically very impressive, many developers at Bungie have been critical of the Tiger engine, expressing how tedious and grueling it can be to create new content, and described it as being ill-suited for the online nature of the game. One employee was cited saying that its resource-intensive nature makes even small changes to the map require an overnight rendering and compiling process. Yet despite the challenges developers were facing with the engine, the team pushed forward, working very hard on Destiny, and we would get our first tease about what Destiny was during 2010 in Bungie's Vidoc titled A Brave New World, where Bungie discussed the history of the company and what they've learned from their previous Halo titles. From the onset, it was made pretty apparent that Destiny was going to be very ambitious, doing things that hadn't been done before and really going all in on it. We'd get our first real look at Destiny in 2012 with some leaked concept art provided by IGN, and shortly after the release of these leaked images, Bungie made a statement discussing how they weren't quite ready to show the game off just yet, but went ahead and gave us a bit more of an official release of some concept art. This resulted in the release of probably the most recognizable concept art image for Destiny. Bungie would remain tight-lipped on news about Destiny until February of 2013, when we learned that the official name of the game would be, of course, Destiny, with Bungie releasing their first Destiny Vidoc, Pathways Out of Darkness, showing numerous concept images, short clips of gameplay, and interviews with the Bungie developers. Progress for the game appeared to be coming along nicely, and by mid-2013, most of the groundwork for the game had been finished. The story, lore, world building were basically completed, the game engine was finished and usable to the fullest extent, and many of the environment missions and levels were completely done, right on track for a September 2013 release. But something happened that would result in a year-long delay. In February 2013, Bungie's lead writing team crafted a supercut of the game to show off to the management at Bungie on all the progress that had been made on Destiny. It consisted of the game's story mission structure and overall progression of the game. After showing this supercut to Bungie upper management, the writing team would receive feedback that was unexpected. The management team felt that the story was too dense and linear and wanted a more open-ended story experience. So the decision was made to completely reboot the story, the mission structure, and the progression of the game just mere months before the game was supposed to release. Because of this unexpected decision, Joseph Staten, Bungie's lead writer, would leave the company shortly after this, as well as a few members of his writing staff. Things were starting to fall apart for Destiny's development, and after 3 years of hard work, Bungie was in big trouble during the 11th hour. Up next was the 2013 E3 gameplay demo being shown off, and it was a hit. The demo was simple and straight to the point on what to expect from the game, and while the final game didn't perfectly live up to players' expectations, the demo really did do a good job of showing off kind of what we would be experiencing in the full game on the regular. And it's pretty rare to see an E3 demo actually represent the final product pretty accurately, but I gotta say, looking back and watching this video now, Destiny really does look, play, and feel like the E3 demo. But after the E3 demo, of course, what came next was a delay. After losing their lead writers and need to redesign so much of the game's story and mission structure, it was nearly impossible to launch the game in just a few months. March 2014 would be the new target window for release. Bungie management essentially created a super team with some of Bungie's best developers to work on recreating the story, splicing and reworking old missions and cinematics into something more cohesive to try and make that March 2014 launch. Areas like the Dreadnought and the European Dead Zone were cut from the game. Characters like Rasputin, Osiris, and the Crow were either cut from the game or changed drastically to fit this new cobbled together storyline. And with March 2014 coming ever closer, Bungie management knew they wouldn't be able to deliver, so they negotiated a bit more with Activision to secure a release date of September 2014. But that was it. No more delays, no more extra time, the game had to ship that year. The goal now was to polish up the gameplay, create the director, and add deeper customization to the character, classes, and weapon types. The hype around Destiny continued to build, with thousands of fans speculating and theorizing about what was in store for us in the full release. The alpha was playable on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 shortly after E3 2014 ended. Those who wished to try out the alpha were able to register at greatnessawaits.com, and they would receive those codes on June 12th. And those lucky enough to get into the alpha were able to create a character, level up to level 8, play story missions on the Cosmodrome, and play a small section of the Crucible multiplayer. Bungie released a whole bunch of statistics related to the alpha test period, including 6.4 million games since it launched. The Destiny beta released in July, just 2 months before the official release of the game. The beta released with most of the content released in the alpha, but added just a little bit more. The entirety of the Cosmodrome patrol space, along with all of the Cosmodrome missions, the Devil's Lair strike, and a few more Crucible maps and modes. At the time of the beta, most players thought this was just a small slice of the game to come in September. Little did players know that this would roughly be a fourth of the entire Destiny vanilla game. But that being said, players still stayed pretty optimistic while heading into Destiny's launch, despite the concerns around things like the loot and what the endgame would be like, and obviously the biggest concern being Rahul's engram decryption being broken or bugged or maybe intentionally kind of rigged, that somehow made it past both the alpha and beta testing, and somehow still launched busted on release day. And while some players could see potential issues, the hype still remained pretty high for Destiny. Destiny 1 has officially launched. September 9th finally came and the game shipped. Everyone who was anticipating the launch of Destiny now officially had their hands on the full game and began their adventure into the world of Destiny. 4 locations were explorable: Earth, the Moon, Venus, and Mars. Because Destiny was so highly anticipated by the masses, and it was Bungie's first game after their massive success with Halo games, I feel like most people expected Destiny to be a lot like Halo, meaning how the campaign is structured. But the campaign actually played a lot differently than a Halo game and very much like a diluted version of the Halo missions, as if they were Halo missions reworked for the MMO style of Destiny. And this proved pretty unpopular, and for good reason. I don't think anybody can deny that the actual story being told throughout the game's campaign was pretty weak, which was most likely due to the last-minute rework of the story and Joseph Staten, the lead writer, leaving the studio after the reboot. But where the campaign story was weak, the world building was amazing. Through the game's environmental design on each of the destinations like the Black Garden, the Hellmouth on the Moon, the Steppes of Venus, the visuals always impressed and made you curious. The backstory to the characters and enemy types were also beyond intriguing to say the least, spawning plenty of lore channels to discuss the mysteries and piece together the story similar to the Dark Souls franchise. Item descriptions on armor and weapons also gave hints towards backstories. The sense of mystery and feeling a part of something bigger than what we were seeing on the surface is what I think helped keep the interest in the game in regards to the Destiny universe. Of course, the amazing gunplay and fluidity of the supers for your Guardian definitely helped keep people around. You've heard it a million times before that Destiny just feels good to play, and it always has. From the weightiness of your guns that felt impactful with each trigger pull, to the power fantasy of blade dancing your way through a group of enemies, it always felt good. Strike missions also proved to be pretty popular with the community, fighting through dungeon-like experiences to defeat a menacing boss at the end, all while improving your gear, your power level, and your skills, lent to a lot of replayability. PvP was arguably really good during this time as well. It felt very much like Halo in some regards, but it also felt like it mixed some other elements from other FPS games as well, like Call of Duty meets Halo with Ultimates. I know for sure Destiny was able to bring over a ton of Call of Duty fans because as a Call of Duty player who had a lot of friends on COD and watched COD related YouTube channels at the time, almost all of them switched over to Destiny as their main game to play for at least a little while, if not permanently. The PvP being a big reason for that. Balance was of course pretty whack, but it was admittedly a ton of fun, especially in the early stages before crazy metas were formed and became a bit more competitive. And PvP would go on to receive a lot of content updates over the next year, including maps and modes because of its popularity, and I think necessity to keep a large portion of the player base around. And now for probably the most important thing to happen in vanilla Destiny, the Vault of Glass raid. Before Destiny was released, Bungie went on the record to say that the Vault of Glass raid was to be the most challenging experience that they'd ever created, and that it was an experience that would take hours to complete, but would provide the ultimate rewards. And you know what? They weren't wrong. The legendary weapons were unmatched with things like Fatebringer and Vision of Confluence, and the exotic exclusive to the raid was top tier and unique. The challenge to complete this raid was very high early on, back when most of the community just weren't prepared for something like it. Complex, for the time, mechanics in a 6-man cooperative setting while in first person was essentially a brand new thing. Raiding, something once exclusive to MMOs up to this point, had never really been introduced into an FPS game before, and more importantly, on console. Destiny was a lot of gamers' first time getting a taste of the MMO experiences, once exclusive to PC, and I think it's fair to say that the Vault of Glass helped skyrocket Destiny's popularity to a much higher level. It's what I believe helped keep the game alive long term by giving hope for the future of the game to build off of the foundation set by the Vault of Glass. Destiny's launch was not perfect. Endgame progression was rough, and people resorted to things like the infamous loot cave in order to farm loot effectively. The story was a bit lacking and ambiguous. The mission design was more than weak compared to Bungie's previous work in Halo games, yet there was something special there, and many of us saw it. Destiny was and still is a game that is brimming with potential and still quite hasn't fully reached it, but Destiny has improved over the years for the most part and built upon its foundation in major ways. Subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this series where we'll be covering the first 2 DLCs, The Dark Below and House of Wolves, and leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. I'll see you all in the next one.